Hi, and welcome to Anders CPAs and Advisors for another edition of PPP with Paul and Dan. So, the SBA came out with another IFR on August 24th, and this was the first guidance that we've got from the SBA since August 11th. And there are a couple areas that they covered. So the question is, why? And it seemed a bit random all of a sudden. Well, I have an opinion, I think, of why. As the portal opened up for the SBA on August 10th, some banks were starting to submit applications. Not many, but there were a few early on. So then the SBA has an opportunity to start looking at these, and I think they're wanting to put some clarification out there as early as they can for the folks that are going to apply later on down the road. So we think this is going to be kind of the new philosophy is as things start to build, we will start to get more clarification as they're reviewing the applications. But what happens is with an IFR like this, it may help some and it may hurt others. And that's what we've seen here. So we want to make sure that you're aware as quickly as possible so that you can make the appropriate decisions for what's best for you and your company. So Dan, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what these clarifications were in this new IFR?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. As you kind of hit it off there, this IFR hurt some and helped others, or maybe a mixture of both. There's three main points in this IFR that I want to address today. I'll start with the good news first. This IFR did say owner-employee limitations only apply to 5% or more owners, shareholders, of C Corps or S Corps. So what that means is those owners, shareholders of C Corps and S Corps that own less than 5% are treated more or less like any other employee in terms of amounts eligible for forgiveness. The main one being if you opt for the 24-week covered period, the wages and payroll for these owner employees is now capped at $46,000 as opposed to the previous $20,833 or $15,385 number. So that's the really good news in that it clarified what shareholders were subject to those owner-employee limitations. The second topic the IFR addressed was expenses attributable to businesses that have subtenants or really the personal use of your home. What this said is the forgiveness requested for non-payroll costs have to only be attributable to your business use. For those with personal use of their home, the example they gave was you are eligible for forgiveness for the amounts you essentially get to claim as a deduction on your tax return. So you have to prorate your non-payroll cost expenses, whether that be in your home and you have a business use within the home, or if you have subtenants. So you can only you can only include as eligible expenses those amounts related to your business portion. The third and likely most damaging part of this IFR was the clarification of related party rent and mortgage interest. So previously, this was not necessarily addressed, and a lot of people thought related party rent was going to be perfectly acceptable as an eligible cost for forgiveness. However, this IFR clarified that if you have related party rental, which I do want to make a point, related party rental is any common ownership between the two businesses without any limitations. So if there is any related party rental, the rent expense you include as eligible for forgiveness cannot exceed the mortgage interest on that property during the covered period. So if your other business entity that the related party owns the building and you have a mortgage on that building, the rent expense that the other entity pays the landlord is now limited to the mortgage interest that the landlord pays on that property during the covered period. So it's a pretty big change from what we had thought, and certainly not one that's advantageous. Then the other, and to take it a step further, actually, if the building is owned outright and there is no mortgage interest on that property, that other related party that is paying the rent does not get to include any of that rent as amounts eligible for forgiveness. So it really hurts quite a few businesses that own their building, or this also applies for those that sublease their space to another business, another outside unrelated entity. You can only include the mortgage interest or the rent expense for the portion of your property which is related to your business operation only, and not any unrelated third party that occupies your space as a subtenant. So those are the three main topics that IFR addressed, and there's some good news, some bad news, and really just some clarification on the whole process itself.
Well, Dan, thanks for the assessment of that. And this is challenging, and we know that, and we know businesses are challenged in trying to make the appropriate decisions that they are. So I think some people wonder why we're preaching patience on this when most people would love to get all of this over with and move forward. So I'm going to read something in an article just to kind of give you a quick idea of where they ended an article on their clarification thoughts around this. The end, it says, the SBA continues to change the rules that apply, leaving borrowers and banks that are tasked with administering PPP loans wondering what will change next, and how they're supposed to submit or accept forgiveness applications with pending legislation in Congress and rules that are continuing to change. So with that being said, we're going to ask you to continue to move forward diligently, but with patience, and we'll certainly help you along that process if needed. We appreciate you joining us today, and stay tuned for another PPP program next week.